All right, let's jump right in. The world of global innovation, it's like this wild, uncharted territory. It's packed with amazing opportunities, but, also a ton of hidden dangers. So the big question is, how do you actually find your way through it all? Well, in this explainer, we're going to talk about two things you absolutely need: a map to see what you're up against, and a compass to find your way. You know that feeling, right? When you're about to make a huge bet on a new technology? It's like you're staring at 1,000 different roads and picking the wrong one. Well, that could be a mistake worth millions or even more. So what you really need is a way to silence all that noise and just get some clear answers. If you go back not that long ago, some of the biggest decisions in R&D and investing were made on a hunch, a gut feeling, or maybe a tip from a buddy in the industry. And look, sometimes that works out. But today, in this crazy, fast-paced global market, that's like trying to navigate that jungle we talked about completely blindfolded. The stakes are just way, way too high. Okay, so that's the old way. Which brings us to the real question, right? How do we get away from just guessing and start using actual evidence? How can governments, companies, and investors make those big strategic calls with real confidence? Well, it all starts with one thing: getting a crystal clear view of the landscape. And that brings us to the first tool in our kit: the map. In the world of innovation, we call this a patent landscape report, or PLR for short. So what in the world is a PLR? Well, the best way to think about it is like a super high-res satellite image, but for a specific area of technology. It's not just some boring list of patents. No, it's a really deep analytical dive into all the patent data out there. The whole goal is to pull out insights you can actually use. It's the hard evidence you need for those make or break decisions. And you might think, oh, this is just for patent lawyers, but that's not it at all. Governments use these maps to figure out where to pour R&D money. Companies, they use them for competitive intelligence, basically to see what their rivals are up to or check out a company they might want to buy. Researchers use them to catch the next big wave before it even forms. And investors, you better believe they're using them for due diligence before they write a massive check. It just shows you how vital these things are for everyone. Okay, so we've got our map, but what's actually on it? What does it show you? Let's zoom in a little bit and see what kind of intel you can get from one of these. Think of a PLR as a kind of master key. It's designed to unlock the answers to the biggest, most important questions you have about a new technology. The who, what, where, and even the when of innovation in that space. And here's where it gets really powerful. A good PLR tells you exactly who the big players are, both the companies and the key inventors. It can spot emerging tech before it's even a blip on the mainstream radar. You can see which countries are the real hotspots for innovation. And this is super important. It can even flag which patents are the most influential, the ones everyone else is building on. Okay, and this is the really cool part. A PLR isn't just a giant, boring spreadsheet. It takes all of that data and turns it into a visual map, something like what you see here. Think of it like a topographic map of technology. Each one of those colored peaks and valleys, that shows you where different technologies are clustered. The dots represent different companies. So all of a sudden, you can literally see the entire competitive landscape at a glance. You can see who the giants are and who's off exploring new territory. It's a way to make incredibly complex data simple. All right, so having a map is a huge advantage. You can see everything. But here's the catch. In our global world, innovation doesn't care about borders. And that is where things start to get tricky. So let's say you use your map and you find a really promising spot to develop a new idea. Awesome. But what if a competitor on the other side of the planet sees the same spot? Who gets to claim that territory? Who actually owns the idea? Suddenly, we realize the map isn't quite enough. Okay, let's make this real with a quick example. You've got company X in the US. They create a new battery technology, and they file patents in America and in Europe. Meanwhile, company Y in Japan develops a very similar battery. They file patents in Japan and also in Europe. Now, both of them want to sell their product globally. So what happens when they both try to sell in Europe, where they both have patents? Who can sue who and where? This is a classic IP headache. And to solve that kind of puzzle, we need our second tool. We need a compass. And for global innovation, our compass is the set of laws that basically provides the rules of the road for these international fights. Now, this area of law has a formal name. It's called private international law. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. When a legal battle spills across borders, this is the rulebook courts use to create order out of potential chaos. It's not just one law, but a whole set of principles for handling these messy cases in a way that's fair and, importantly, predictable. And the way it works is by asking 3 fundamental questions, in order. First up is jurisdiction. Basically, which court even gets to decide this case? Second, applicable law. Okay, we have a court, but which country's laws do they use? And third, and this is huge, recognition and enforcement. Let's say you win. How do you make sure that ruling is actually enforced in other countries? It's a 3-step process to untangle the mess.
So by working through those 3 questions, the whole system creates a predictable framework. And look, the goal isn't to create one single world patent or anything like that. It's about having a clear, agreed-upon process for when different countries' laws bump into each other. That is the compass. It's what guides you through the tricky legal waters of the global market.
Okay, so let's put it all together, the map and the compass. Because to really make it in today's world of innovation, you can't just have one or the other. You absolutely need both. And don't just take my word for it. The World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, basically says that having this kind of high-quality information, the stuff you get from a PLR, is essential. And not just for business. It's critical for huge international policy debates. Think public health, climate change, you name it. That's the power of the map. So it really all boils down to this. To win at innovation today, you need a 2-part strategy. It's that simple. You need the map, your PLR, so you can see the whole playing field, spot the opportunities, and know the risks. But you also need the compass, your understanding of international law, so you can actually navigate that territory safely once you go global. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. In a world that's getting more connected by the second, is having this kind of map and compass, is that just a nice little advantage to have, or is it now an absolute, non-negotiable necessity for survival?